Hello again. Welcome to LiveTALK. I'm Susan Allen. We have an important discussion today, how to do business with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. Each year, our federal government spends $500 billion in contracts. It is the largest buyer in the world. And early this year, President Biden issued an executive order instructing all federal agencies with contracting authority to increase their procurement from minority businesses from 5 to 15% in the next 5 years. In fiscal year 2021, which just ended on September 30th, DHS, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, spent $21 billion in contracts, and it obligated over $7.3 billion to small businesses owned by socially and economically disadvantaged Americans, minorities. That's what it means. Women, service-disabled veterans, and businesses located in historically underserved, underutilized business districts. And minority businesses can be owners of all these categories of businesses. Now, $7.3 billion is impressive. This performance earned the DHS an A+ grade in the SBA scorecard. How did DHS do it? What can our viewers and audience who are already in or entering or thinking about entering federal contracts like the DHS get into this game or market? To tell us, I'm delighted to have a longtime supporter and partner of ours from the DHS, Darlene Bullock, Director, Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization. We call it OSDBU or OSDBU. Darlene, welcome to LiveTALK. Say, how long have we known each other?
I don't know. Quite a while, at least. I don't know. How long have I been in y'all? 10, 11 years. You know, I met you through Kevin Boshears, who a lot of people still.
Well, since September 11.
Right. Yeah. So a long time.
Yep. Long time. Yep.
Long time. And we appreciate your support, and we support all small businesses, and I love doing these kind of events just to, get out the word about small business and minority businesses and just everything, just so you can hear from the OSDBU office, especially a large one like DHS, what it is that we do, right?
Yeah. Well, Darlene, as the director of OSDBU, you report directly to the Deputy Secretary of DHS, not a small feat. And you have a direct a dotted line of communication channel with the chief procurement officer of the department, which spent $21 billion last year, fiscal year. You have a very important and influential job, a role that impacts minority businesses' role to contracting with DHS.
Yes.
Explain to start within the DHS, how many divisions are there, and do they each handle their own contracts?
Yeah, let me explain a little bit. So DHS has decentralized procurement, which means, like Susan said, everybody buys their own stuff, right? But we do have contracts that we award, strategically sourced contracts for the department, where it's one contract, but many of the different divisions can utilize the contract. So sometimes I forget these, so I wrote them all down just so you'll know. And it's important because a lot of companies that come to see us don't realize what's part of Homeland Security, right? So that's one of the key things you should know if you're coming to any agency, but particularly Homeland, because we have so many different, agencies that were standalone agencies, but after 9/11 came together to create Homeland. So within Homeland Security, there's United States Secret Service. I'll read it because it's 10, so I don't want to forget it. United States Coast Guard, which is a huge buyer. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. FEMA. We have a division that buys cybersecurity. You may not hear a lot about them. They're the Office of Selective Acquisition. Their spending does not go into FPDS, the Federal Procurement Data System. So you may not hear a lot about them, but they do a lot of a lot of cyber work. So we mention them, but they're not really part of. They do a lot of classified work. Headquarters, OPO, they are the buyers for the secretary and all of the offices like Science and Technology Division, Federal Protective Service, et cetera. TSA, we see TSA every day when we are checking into fly. Just a correction. Now, TSA are the screeners for boarding. They do not run the airports. So it's so people understand clearly that what the job of the TSA agents are, and the equipment, and there's a lot of technology involved with TSA. USCIS is the Citizen Immigration Service. FLETC, the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, and CBP, Customs and Border Patrol. So those are the 10 buying activities, and they buy, decentralize everything separately, but we try to come together when it's common spend, common buy. But we do say that if you're interested in one of those groups, is that you reach out to small business specialists, to my office also. So in each one of those divisions, we have small business specialists. So they are the boots on the ground for you to talk to first. You can always email me and my group. But they know intimately what procurements are coming. They know the program offices. They know the contracting people. We get involved in different dollar values at the department level, at my level. But, and there's some larger buyers than others, like CBP is a huge buyer, U.S. Coast Guard, headquarters, OPO / we call that headquarters and Office of Procurement Operations. And it depends on the fiscal year. It depends on the budget. It depends on what's going on in the world. FEMA is a large buyer. You never know what contracts FEMA is going to turn on because of disasters. We hope and pray they don't have to spend that much money, that there are no disasters in this world, but we live in reality. And so, they were also helpful with COVID response. So, DHS is a huge mission. And so we have very varied missions, each one of those different groups. And so often you just, you kind of feel which one works best for me? Who should I reach out to? And so that's what small business specialists will help to do. That's what my office will help to do.
Okay, that's right. That's exactly where I'm going. So what is the OSDBU? What are its primary functions? I know that when Congress created the SBA in 1953, it also established the Office of OSDBU in each of the 24 federal agencies that have a contracting authority, and DHS became one after September 11th. That's when I got to know you. Good friend, old friends, good partnership. So what is, for the audience and viewer, what is the OSDBU? What are these primary functions?
Well, the OSDBU, like when you mentioned the opening, Susan, we are the Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization. So that's a long title, right? Mm-hmm. So that acronym shrinks down to OSDBU. Now, what is the OSDBU? The OSDBU is not a contracting office. I was a contracting officer for quite some time, for years before I became, such a small business advocate and working in this office.
That's why you're so good at what you do.
Yeah,
you know both sides of the equation.
I know both sides of the equation. It's very true. I think sometimes when you have an OSDBU that has been on both sides, especially at high levels like I was in contracting, is that you understand, the ins and outs. That doesn't sound right, or great idea. I didn't think about that, with some of the contracting officers, contract specialists. But what the main goal of the OSDBU is to implement the Small Business Act. So Section 15K of the Small Business Act has a load of different duties for the OSDBU. The OSDBU office, the small business specialists, they call them technical advisors. Technical assistance advisors, I believe, in the Small Business Act. Our job is to implement small business FAR Part 19 of the Federal Acquisition Regulation. We have just a very a bunch of things we do that people don't realize. Now, we'll say this. Some OSDBU offices you run into may not do the same thing. We all have the same mission. But, when you're spending $20 billion, DOD spending $300 billion, VA is spending that kind of much. And then you may go to a smaller agency who's not spending as much. Mission is just as important. So you may see variations of what that OSDBU office and director must do and has to do. Always following the Small Business Act. We all have to do that. So our goal is to maximize opportunities for small, prime contracts and subcontracting. So, anything that I have to do to try to maximize that is what we do, in line with the law and regulation and et cetera. So we work with Chief Procurement Officer to make sure that, rules are being followed. We set up training. I did a lot of training last year on, just the small business programs, because I think if you know better, you do better, And sometimes we have a lot of new people, people coming into the procurement arena. You have people, I can understand that when I was a contracting person, your first thought wasn't small business, even though it should be. This is what the rules say. But sometimes the first thought is mission, and you kind of lose that perspective of, small business is first. So those are the things that I kind of drive through. But all activities that have to do with supporting small business, all socioeconomic groups, Susan explained it earlier about small disadvantage, hub zone, women-owned, service-disabled, veteran-owned businesses. Those are the businesses that I support and make sure that they have opportunities with the department.
Well, as a director, you have, as I said earlier, very influential role to play. So what are your authorities and responsibility in the office of OSDBU?
Well, I'll say in DHS OSDBU, because I'll say it's maybe quite different in different groups, like I explained. So the DHS OSDBU I think is quite a powerful OSDBU. Yes. And I'll say that because we had such a strong leader in Kevin Boshears. Yeah, I am a very strong leader also in the contracting piece, and it has to be kind of a passion. It's kind of hard when you don't have that passion for it. And I'll say for DHS, it's because we spend so much money, because our mission is in tune to making sure there are these opportunities for small businesses. And I'll say this, there's some agencies where what they do, let's say NASA, for example, they just can't spend 40% on small businesses. It's just the mission of, building some of these, the things that they have to do. Department of Energy is probably the same way. But Homeland has so many different missions and activities. Like we're ideal and right to make sure that we have a lot of activities or contracts or opportunities for small businesses. So we have a lot of processes in place. I like to not have you think that, okay, we just wake up and go, oh, let's award it to a small business. That's not how it works. Oh, let's just award to a large company. There's, a lot of market research that takes place. There is, we have proven processes in place. That are actually best practices in the federal government that we have put in place at DHS that are used in different agencies. So, DHS is a leader in federal procurement. Mm-hmm. And so I think it shows in the procurement scorecard. Susan mentioned earlier about we received the A on the scorecard. Now we haven't received it for 21 yet because it's kind of, you don't get the score till like a year later. But for the last 12 years, since the scorecard was a letter grade, DHS has received an A or better. The last 5 years, we've received an A+. There's no agency our size that has that kind of record. And so we're very proud of that, and we're proud to support the small business community.
Well, I also know that in your position, you are the powerful advocate for small businesses, and there are times when the department wants to move some of those functions performed by small businesses to employees, and you have something to say about it. They hear you, right?
Yeah, well, we have a process. So, and I'll tell all the small businesses that are listening, watching us right now, is that you all also have a duty. So that duty is to make sure that you are proactive, that you respond to requests for information and sources sought. Mm-hmm. It can get expensive to, submit to those. But that's another function of the OSDBU. If you see a request for information or sources sought and you think, hey, I can do this. Mm-hmm. We've done something like this in the past, but the response looks like you're, trying to submit to an RFP, 30 pages. That's ridiculous. Okay. So those are the things the OSDBU would contact us and say, well, why is this happening? And then I take it from there and go, mm-hmm. What are we doing here? So those little pieces are some of the things that we do to get involved. But when I say that you all have to be proactive, the only way things get set aside is if they know there are small businesses that can do it, mm-hmm. that are capable. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Capability statements. They're providing past performance experience. If they don't see that and don't see that it's been presented well, they don't have a duty to set it aside. Mm-hmm. So that's why we want small businesses to make sure that they are. You have to tell your competitor, mm-hmm. Hey, now you do. You have to say, look, this opportunity exists, and we'd like to keep it in the small business community. I need everybody to gather around, and we need to submit and try to go after this. I mean, it's key. And if you don't, sometimes those opportunities get lost. Small businesses can still compete in an unrestricted procurement. The problem is now that who are you competing against? Mm-hmm. Larger small businesses, huge companies, corporations. Mm-hmm. And so we want to make sure those opportunities that fit stay within those different socioeconomic groups or small businesses in general.
Great. Wonderful. So mm-hmm. Last year, the fiscal year that ended September 30th, your agency, your department spent over $7.3 billion in contracting with women-owned, small disadvantaged, owned, upzone, and the service-disabled veterans. Yeah. What product and service categories did most of that spend go?
I just ran this report today, Susan. We got it today. And so I wanted to be fresh for you today. So the for fiscal year 20 and 21, it's usually the same thing. Usually, security guards and patrol services. If people don't, there's security guard companies out here. Federal Protective Service spends a lot of money mm-hmm. in that NAICS code. So let me go back. So what happens is there are these things called NAICS codes, mm-hmm. NAICS. And what that stands for is North American Industrial Classification System codes, right? So what those codes do, Department of Commerce produces the codes and gives it a description. But what the Small Business Administration does is they take the codes and apply a size standard to it. So size standards, that determines if you're small or not. And size standards, depending on the NAICS code, can be revenue-based or employee-based. So SBA has a lot of information on their website. Every few years, they change the NAICS codes, right? So not the NAICS codes, but the status of the NAICS, if you're small or not, the size standard. So our top NAICS codes in fiscal year 20 and 21 were 561612, which is security guard services. We spent about $2.1 billion, $2.2 billion in security guard services in fiscal year 21.
Wow, 10%. Woo!
We spent, next one is 541512. That's computer systems design services. Right. We spent about $1.8 billion in that NAICS code.
Okay.
The other one is also a computer related NAICS code. That's 541519. We spent about $1.7 billion.
Okay.
Facility support services, that NAICS code is 561210. A little over $1 billion. And engineering services, 541330, another $1 billion. So those are our top 5 NAICS codes. But we buy everything from, IT systems to helicopters and, laptops and everything. So it's a wide range of things that we do. But those just happen to be the ones where we're spending the most money.
Right. Well, a follow on that. What is the percentage spent on minority businesses? Do you know? Do you have any record?
Well, I don't have that for each NAICS code, Susan. I'll give it to you for fiscal year 21. Okay. And again, we don't do it by minorities. So it's more by, like you mentioned earlier, small disadvantaged business. You're assumed to be a minority, right? That's not always the case, because some people can assert that they have also been socially and economically disadvantaged. That's really the definition of it. And so socially and economically disadvantaged, automatically, that's minorities. But there are people who are non-minorities who are also claiming to be socially and economically disadvantaged. And every now and then you may see those individuals also are, it's not as automatic as it used to be, that it's just that group. Let me put it that way. Okay. So we ran these numbers last Friday. So, and some of them have changed. So in fiscal year 21, like Susan mentioned, we spent $21 billion in small business spend, right? Small disadvantaged business spend was $3.6 billion. Hub zone spend was $1.14 billion. Service disabled, veteran-owned small business was $1.1 billion, and women-owned small business was $1.45 billion. So, and this is the first year, I believe, I was looking at the stats, that every one of those categories is over $1 billion. The hub zone kind of sometimes hovers around 900 million, something like that. But this year, every category is over $1 billion in spend. And so and our goal, so everyone understands, every federal agency also negotiates small business goals with the SBA. So when Susan spoke earlier about, the president wants to increase the small disadvantaged business goal over the next 5 years, yes, we have yet to see that in formally, but that is what he would like to do. They also mentioned raising some of the other goals in a lot of information in the House NDAA. They talk about raising some of the other goals. So our small business goal with SBA for the department was 33.25 in fiscal year 21. Yeah. We did 38.3 right now. So what happened? Yeah, that is unheard of. We've never done that high ever.
Wow.
So this is what I talk about. I think a lot of the changes that I've made, a lot of the training that's being done that we're doing, so people can understand what this means to be the small businesses first. I think is working, and I think there's been a lot of internal changes that have happened, and so we've been very successful. So what happens is these are called preliminary numbers, right? So they'll probably change until next February, March, April, when the federal procurement data system shuts down for fiscal year 21. Because things come in, there are mods, the little things that happen in the subcontracting piece. Everything will shut down next fiscal year, next calendar year. So for fiscal year 21. So it's like a year back. So yeah, we look, I'm telling you, Susan, when I saw those numbers, I started tracking them. We track them every week, right? So when I started tracking them like every day, in the last,
you're happy.
This is crazy. I mean, I am, because it's like it's cause and effect.
Yes.
If then, it's like, I know these things will work. Let's see how it affects the opportunities that can be given to small businesses. And it worked. And we've over 38%. We've never had that at the end of the fiscal year.
Incredible.
So it's incredible, right?
Incredible. Well, as a result of that, I think whether President Biden made that executive order or not, you already achieved those beyond your goals, your annual self-imposed goal. You're always beyond. And now with the president's executive order, we've been hearing from the federal agency, from the Defense Department to Treasury to FDIC and education, and you go down the line of 24 agencies. They all reach out to us and they say, we want to work with Asian American businesses because they are the one which we have the least number. Now, sometimes in IT, we tend to have quite a bit, but I do not know about the federal government, but in the private sector, the Asian American huge companies tend to get the lion's share of the commercial markets, minority business market. So therefore pushing the medium and small size business aside. And we're trying to make some changes to that. So what you've done is just phenomenal, Darlene. And I want to say this, in order to qualify as a minority business, whether it's in the federal government under the economically and socially disadvantaged category, or in the commercial sector as a pure minority business, it must be certified as that business is at least 51% owned, controlled, and managed on a day-to-day basis by one or more minority Americans.
Right.
In the federal sector, the SBA certified the business as an 8A company, right? In the commercial sector, U.S. PAC has been certifying Asian American and other minority businesses since 1998. It's been 23 years that we were asked by major corporations to train, develop, and certify Asian American businesses, because no organization at that time, and for many years after that time, 1998, was helping Asian Americans. And that's just because of the time. So as a result of being asked by the major corporation to start a certification program to make sure that we bring truly Asian American owned, controlled, and operated businesses to the market, we travel around the country and tell them about minority business development in the government and the commercial sector. We trained, developed, and connected them to supply chain professionals. That's what or procurement managers in small business. So that's why you and I started so long ago right after September 11. And we designed a program for this very unique market for Asian American when they knew nothing. They thought it was a handout, and we say no. There's a lot of advocacy on it. You're too small to compete with the IBMs of the world. That there's a little pond that the government, federal government, and the commercial part sector have built for companies like you who can compete among yourself.
Mhm.
And as a result of that, we USPAC had increased the diversity of the marketplace in minority businesses, improved the diversity, and we created fostered competition and created more choices for the procurement community. And we are successful only because we have your ears, Darlene. You
Yeah.
always the government is very fair. Government is the fair because you have the law, you have the SBA Act on top
Look,
of
you have the law, and you have, people with voices who, when they think something's not right, to challenge those decisions. And I think that's what makes us all, citizens of this country and living here. Why that we have the opportunity to challenge something we don't think is right.
Yeah.
So, and the procurement laws allow that. And so, if any small business that feels that there are any issues with anything from payment to I mentioned before about RFIs being a little obtrusive. Like, why do you need all this information to come up with some and granted, some may need more information than others. If you're buying basketballs, that's a lot different than, okay, I have this big IT system. You have to answer that and have it make sense, but it shouldn't be where it's so restrictive that it's not allowing you to do that, and may cost you a lot of money to do that. So, again, if you ever see anything like that, report that to our office. But, these small businesses have voices. These associations have voices. And I'll tell you, one of the things with, the president's agenda is to make sure a lot of these underserved communities are addressed. And even though they are in some of the procurement laws, service disabled veterans, those individuals with disabilities, rural areas, individuals with, whatever their sexual preference is, minorities, women, women, period, not just, minority women. And one of the things that we're doing is, making sure that we're reaching out. I'll tell you something as simple, Susan, is that, sometimes we don't think about these things. And one of the things for outreach and making sure we're getting to the underserved communities is communication.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes these events that we do, we don't have interpreters, or we kind of go, oops, we asked that question. That is also one of the things that DHS is looking at it. Are we doing this right? Are we making sure everything's 508 compliant?
Mm-hmm.
Do we request, in time for there to be interpreters at this all hands meeting or this industry day? And so we have to kind of take a look at our own ourselves and go, well, what are we not doing that we're doing within the law, meaning the service disabled, those set asides, the socioeconomic, but what else can we do better? What else should we be doing better to make sure just groups of the disabled groups or people with some kind of disability are able to join in government procurement? And that's our duty. And I'll tell you, that's one of my duties for the next fiscal year, this fiscal year 22, is making sure that it's very inclusive of every group.
Great, wonderful. Well, let me go off the track a little bit and ask you, do you have a success vendor story that impressed you the most that you could share?
Well, I have this story, so I'm going to tell everybody this story right now. I'll have another one for her when next, but I'll tell everyone that every year, one of our best practices of DHS is that we used to have an in-house award ceremony. We had to stop that because of COVID. And so what I did in 2020 is we created it was for the 2019 winners, but it was produced in 20. So I have this great booklet that talks about our small business award winners for each component, right? So each one of those components I mentioned earlier, TSA, Secret Service, they all, provided who they felt were great companies to be recognized in this booklet. It's beautiful though. It had a letter from me and the CPO. It had a certificate. It's on our website if anyone wants to look at the Small Business Award winners. We're producing the fiscal year 2020 booklet now, which will have a little more information because we have the scorecard and those things. So I'm going to read you all a quick email from one of those winners of the FEMA Small Business Award. So FEMA nominated this company. Mm-hmm. And so what I do is I send them out personally. I send out to everyone. I don't have a secretary. I don't have an admin send out anything for me because I think it's that important, right? So I sent this thing out. It was posted in sam.gov, or maybe it was FedBizOps at the time. May not have been SAM yet. And so company responded to my email to him. Mm-hmm. And so I'll read you what he wrote to me.
Okay.
He says, Ms. Bullock, thank you so much. That's all in capitals. He says, I am very humbled and honored. I am so grateful for the opportunities that FEMA, SBA, my graduate school, this country, and God has given me. Growing up poor, even by my native country's Indian standards, I did not even dream that someday I would receive on behalf of my company a recognition of this magnitude. Ooh. I will continue to ensure that my company and I provide the best possible service to FEMA and DHS. Thanks again. Then he says, P.S. I just saw your email and I immediately called my mom. She was in tears. She is a very emotional type person. Yeah. Extremely happy and proud that her son's company has been recognized by FEMA of the United States. Thanks on her behalf too. Every time I read that, I tear up, but it's the essence of why I do what I do. Mm-hmm. The essence of why we all do what we do. You see something, you're great company, great idea. How can I help this country and its mission? How can I help DHS? And just the passion behind it. And I can feel him just when he says, coming from a poor country and just never thought this would happen. That's the point of the United States and opportunity.
That's
right. And so that is what DHS wants to make sure that they give to small business, socioeconomic businesses, that opportunity. And so he's creating jobs, creating a life for himself, his family, his mom's proud. You can't get any better than that, right? That is just,
That's the American dream.
It is. It is in that email. It really is.
Well, you have a lot to do with it. You change the policy and improve the practice, build on what Kevin Bush has done, and you were there by his side, and you've been a very strong lieutenant, and I appreciate that. Thank you. Well, I didn't expect you to say the Asian Indian, but I also read the booklet, by the way. It's very impressive, beautiful.
Oh, you liked it? Yeah.
And I saw one company is one of our members. It's a veteran.
I didn't know that. Oh, well, I'll send me that, and I will reach out to them about that their story. And I didn't know that. Okay, good. I'm glad you saw it, so you can.
In fact, that CTO is going to be speaking at our CTO CIO forum on November 10th at 8 or 10. So, November 10, we have a great event then. We have the CTO from Wells Fargo, from Nationwide, from Wireless Infrastructure Association. We have Howard University's chairman of the Information System Department. Auditing is wonderful. And I want to.
Now I know. You have to send me that information. Send me that company's name.
I will. Now my off the track question generated one question from the audience. I think you can deal with it. How does your office help to prepare small business in preparing for the bid? And how about proposal writing? Do you have any training on that?
Yes, but that's not what our office does. So I'll tell you who does that. So I don't want my computer to go out. Sorry. There's a group called the PTAC,
Yes.
Procurement Technical Acquisition Centers, that's run by DOD. They're actually within DLA, but they're moving to DOD proper to be managed at the DOD level, the program. And so what the PTAC is there's one in every state. They usually run out of a college, and they kind of go through the ABCs 1, 2, 3s of procurement. They have a lot of different courses of federal procurement. I think they do state procurement too. I'm not sure, but they take you through, different courses. It's free. And they can tell you, I guess not, I don't know if they tell you you're ready or not, or these are the things that you need to know about federal procurement. It may be better to be a subcontractor first. Let me get my feet a little wet. Yeah. Or maybe, no, you are ready, but the PTAC is who actually can help with that. Government agencies do not help individuals write proposals. We get feedback on when they're not that great, or try to make, we've been trying to do these things now where we issue these draft RFPs and draft statements of work, so you can kind of see it and go,
that's good. That's useful. Yeah, that's
we do that. We do that a lot at DHS, and so you may see the same statement of work 6 times, but we're trying to get input from industry, who are the experts on how this really statement of work should be written. We kind of know what we want, but what really is it that makes sense? It can even be from, how does this priced in commercial sector? We don't even, sometimes we're not even sure how to set a pricing structure, because we have to ask, well, how is this commonly done that makes more sense? What kind of reports really should be needed? We know what we'd like, but is it too much to ask for this report, or does that make any sense in this, in this setting, in this commercial space, for us to have as much competition as possible? So, it just depends.
Yeah. Okay. The next thing I have is, you mentioned there's a security guard, facility management, engineering, IT. Those are top line, right? Top of the list. What other pressing needs DHS has in the next 24 months besides these very top line? Or they're too numerous to mention?
Well, what I'll tell everyone is to go to we have an acquisition forecasting system. So I don't think Sharon is here inside of this event, but it's called, the acronym is APFS. So it's Acquisition Planning Forecasting System. And what that has is all of DHS procurement, not all of them are in, but we'll have a majority of them in. But it indicates all of the procurements we think are going to occur. It's a planning tool in the coming fiscal year. And so you can sort by NAICS codes, like the NAICS codes we talked about. It could be a NAICS code that something that you do that's not one of those codes, to see if DHS has any opportunities coming up. And I would say, if you search now, like every couple months or so, or every month, because it's a live document. It changes, right? So it's not stagnant. So what you see now, if you go in, is not the same thing you'll see 2 or 3 months from now.
Okay.
And so that will show you a lot of things that DHS is buying. Coast Guard buys, everybody buys all of these things. So each one of these components buys all of those things on the list, except for maybe security guard service. That is the job of Federal Protective Service. But everything else is, every component does that. And so, but that's not the only thing that's in the APFS. It has every NAICS code that we will possibly buy if it's been entered in. So those aren't the limitations, right? Those are just some of the ones that we do. Okay, so they're fast. Your group's fast, Susan. I love it. They have it there. Well, they're fast. I like it.
Yeah, thank you. That's what we do. We're customer friendly, customer first, and of course we were formed 36 years ago because no one was paying attention to Pan-Asian Americans. But eventually, we found that federal government agencies are our customers too, because we serve both sides, of the procurement side and the supplier side. So yeah,
Yeah.
we keep an eye. With such a big increase in spending coming from Congress last year and this year, and potentially 2022, of course, how will that impact the procurement process in the government? Will there be any changes?
Well, it's an increase in spending without any more money. So,
You need to do
so
suppliers.
right. It's not like the spending is doubling. The
Yep.
amount of money to spend is doubling.
Yep.
It's really that now, look, you have to make sure, agency, that you try to meet this goal that has been increased with the budget that you've been given.
You
And
stay
so,
up to 36%.
I mean, I'll tell you, for example, like the small disadvantaged business goal.
Uh-huh.
They're trying to raise it to 15% over the next couple of years, right? I think they're planning to raise it in fiscal year 22, the year we're in. We just haven't seen it yet or what it'll be. But the federal government averages about 10, 11% anyway. And the goal is 5%. So, I don't think that's a big of a stretch. Now, there may be some agencies that don't meet that, but as a whole, the government has been doing that. And so I think, we'll wait and see, because I'm sure there'll be, a lot of discussion about, okay, you've raised the goal. What's the plan? Because you have to have a plan to meet the goal. It's very strategic. Some of this is very strategic. So you have to make sure you have those opportunities in place, processes in place. Yeah. People are educated. So there's a lot of moving parts to, making sure that you have a system in place to even try to meet a goal. Right. And so, I mean, we shall see. But no, our small disadvantaged business achievement was 17.23 this year %. So we keep on pace. We've already met any goal increase that would happen this year. But 15 may be challenging for us too. So we have to pull up our pants and figure out how we're going to do that. And we're committed to doing that, and figuring out what vehicles we'll use, what contracts. Right. Making sure there's more information out to be able to set aside something. Not taking things out of certain programs so they stay in certain programs, like the 8A program. We have processes in place for that. You just don't take things out of the 8A program, which everyone in 8A is small disadvantaged business. Mm-hmm. So or using the 8A program more. 8A Stars is one of the vehicles, is IT vehicle. Some of your members may be part of 8A Stars or 3, and that's an 8A vehicle, small disadvantage. So we'll see. This is going to be a very challenging year. Yeah, very exciting. So we have to see what's going to happen.
I guess you have one way I think about for you guys is that you need a longer runway. Some of the agency who are not even there yet, 5 or 10%, they will have a long runway. The other is the question is, do they want the increase in dollar volume or number of vendors? Okay.
You know what? It's a little bit of both, because I'll tell you, they do want an increase in spend to vendors, to companies. Mm-hmm. And they also want to know that the vendor base, which has been shrinking, starts to grow again, especially the small business vendor base. Mm-hmm. I mean, you'll see a lot of small business spending, but it kind of goes to the same companies, like you were mentioning about, in the private sector. Mm-hmm. So the small business spend is great. It's just not being expanded. And there's different reasons for that. I won't blame it on just one thing. I think a lot of things contribute to maybe that happening, but we do have to make sure that we have enough. That also plays on security. When your vendor pool is low, that's that is not a good idea to secure. Think about COVID, and just personal protection equipment and not having that many vendors who think of that this would happen and have these things, and you're paying exorbitant prices to get things, and it just was initially a very bad time to get those kind of things. So,
and then Darlene, early retirement of the owner, and also selling the company to a majority company, then you lose your small business. Right, some of the company they decide to sell the company.
Well, I mean, those are business decisions that companies make. Often that they want to sell their company and make money and go play golf, or just they've been successful,
right?
Or they take on contracts. Remember, we talked about size standards that may make them no longer small and make them large. Or they make that decision, well, I don't want to do that. I don't want to go that way yet to be a large company. I want to stay in this pool. And then they do sell their companies or be acquired or whatever. But that, those are business decisions that the government doesn't get involved in those. But there are consequences though from that. If you do that, acquire companies, be acquired, there's certain things like recertification, to recertify that you are still a small business. So that's one thing I talk to companies about. Just be mindful of when you start acquiring, being acquired. There's a lot that goes into that too. Just be wary of strategic. Do you want to stay small? Do you want to not have affiliation issues? Meaning someone, kind of has control over your company other than you. So there are a lot of different things that you have to think about.
And that's why certification is so important. It's got to be taken seriously. There is a movement now in the marketplace that there are organizations that offer fast track certification in 24 hours. And that is totally unacceptable, because we have been certifying for 23 years. We know you cannot certify in 24 hours.
There's no such thing. No, there's no such thing. You also should be wary about like women-owned small business program. There's been a lot of changes in the women-owned small business program and how to be certified. Now, that program does have third-party certifiers, like the Women's Chamber of Commerce is one. My brain, the ladies.
NABO.
NABO and WeBank. Yeah, WeBank, yes. So there are like 4, I think, but I think they involve a payment, which, SBA is, that's a whole system there, HubZone is a certification SBA controls. Service Disabled program, they're about to start controlling that from the VA. Claiming that you're a small disadvantaged business is not a certification, right? Okay. So everybody, you do not have to be certified as a small disadvantaged business to claim that. That's a self-certification. To be an 8A company though, that is a certifier SBA has to do, and you have to applications for that. It's a lot of some paperwork. They've streamlined it in the last few years. 8A program is a certification. Anyone who thinks that they're a small disadvantaged business, minority business included in that, that's a self-certification. Okay. HubZone is not. SBA has to certify. Right now, Service Disabled, the VA is who runs that program, but it's and women is verified by SBA with also third-party certifiers if you want to use those. But in my experience, nothing happens in 24 hours. So please do not pay any company to have you certified in 24 hours. Do not pay any company who say they can do stuff for FEMA for you in a certain amount of hours and days. That's not correct. So, and if you have those questions, something just seems too good to be true, reach out to the OSDBU office or small business specialist or whoever you feel comfortable, and ask the question. The IG, anybody. Say, is there such a thing as, the IG, some of these, hotlines, and I think those kind of individuals need to be, taken to task, and whatever happens, if they're saying that they can get you some kind of certification that quickly, because they themselves cannot.
Because it's an open invitation to fraudulently apply, create. I practiced immigration law for a long time before I switched took over that hat and wore this hat in the last 20 years. And I know it's just like it's a certifying a small and minority business is a paper focus business. You got to look at the constitution of the company, whether it's truly owned, the shareholders are in place, the board of directors are in place.
You tax it. Yeah, it's a lot.
And they pay their taxes. You know, just a long time ago when we have women-owned business, you have the husband and really running the whole show behind the woman. And I've seen that. But now they're talking, there is such a desire to certify a lot of minority businesses, partly because of President Biden's executive order, and they want to certify as many as possible. One reason is because it is a revenue stream for the organization who want to very quickly certify the business. We can get a fee. The other, they want to say, well, we have all these minority businesses. However, you can't do that until you actually, besides looking at the paperwork, some of the paperwork you can do it electronically. For example, checking with the Secretary of State to make sure the company is actually incorporated, is still in good standing. And if there's a way to check the tax return is real, okay, we'll check that. Otherwise, and until you check the tax return, unless they are willing to lie to the IRS, you do not know who really owns. So for us at USPAT, my certification chair told me, Susan, you check my work like an auditor. I said, yeah. If she's on the line, Vern, I'm talking about you now. I'm like a check for playing chess, but I'm always checking. Vern, how about this, about that? Yeah, I'm glad that you guys take it so seriously. But certification is because you take a company who fraudulently claims minority status, and you give the company that contract, and you deprive of the real, genuine minority companies the opportunity. And even if you get discovered, something, just like the IRS audit, when you discover you get an accountant and pay the fine. No, this is not a matter of paying the fine to the IRS. This is depriving another business who really hold that status, the business that not be repaid. So,
well, let me just foot stomp that though. Small disadvantaged business, you can self-certify. Yes. If you are, if you read the description of what a small disadvantaged business is, and if you're socially and economically disadvantaged, you can self-certify all day long.
But not in the private sector, in the commercial sector, the corporations want, because they have said before, some of the folks who created or have been the expert on the minority certification said that even the SBA certification is not good. They said they're not worth it. Okay. I remember sitting at a conference. I heard the guy came out and open. I couldn't believe he said that. The SBA certification is not good. The company, Fortune 500 company, actually has two divisions. One commercial side, and the other the federal side. It does business with the federal government. How could they be like that? But there is such an issue that the private sector, the corporations want businesses to be certified because they do not want to be in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, say so-and-so company claim to spend so much money on minority businesses. But there are also questions about company who does a lot of business in China. Okay, are they claiming the spend on minority businesses based upon what they spend in China? Right? So
I mean, I don't. Yeah, I mean, one of the definitions of a small business is, like you said before, they're owned by U.S. citizen. And that they're a for-profit entity. So for-profit. So, a lot of people say, well, how come this a school? They want to contract with a school. Well, you can, but that school is not for profit, which is part of the definition of a small business is for profit. And so they're determined to be a large business. So you really have to know where you sit in that space based on those next codes too of am I small or large? And that's very important. And I think that is one of the areas where, when you talked about a lot of agencies have need a longer runway, you have to really know what contracts are going to be used, what's happening, what's happening within this next year with like the planning tool to really know where you can focus small business set asides and so forth. So for example, a small disadvantaged business, there's no such thing as a set aside for that. It's illegal. So 8A is the set aside program, not small disadvantaged businesses.
Yeah.
But small disadvantaged businesses can become 8A if they're certified.
Right.
So that piece kind of goes this way with those two. But just because you're small disadvantaged doesn't mean you're in the 8A program. But I would stress anyone who's a small disadvantaged business identifying themselves as that they move forward to try to get in the 8A program.
Yeah.
Some of the mentor protege programs that a lot of the federal agencies, some few still have, but SBA has a mentor protege program that's interesting, and I think everybody should research that. I think it's one of the less used type of programs in the federal government, but has a huge impact if used correctly.
Mm-hmm. Well, for the audience, Darlene, I'd like to share with the audience that if you are to want to do business with the federal government, your company should be owned by U.S. citizens, okay?
Yeah.
U.S. citizens. Mm-hmm. But if you are doing business with the private commercial sector, you don't have to be a U.S. citizen. And we certify 2 levels of business. One is category 1, you owned by U.S. citizens. The second type is category 2, owned by legal permanent residents. Because we have seen, and I was a permanent resident once. I've been a citizen for a long time. And I have members who have been citizens for a long time, have been permanent resident for a long time, but never became a U.S. citizen because they still have family with properties in their country, like Thailand and Japan. They denounce that in order to become a U.S. citizen, they have to denounce the citizenship of the whole country. So they will lose their inheritance rights and for all different reasons. So because we have category 2 permanent resident certification, it's because they serve the army, they die for the country, they pay taxes, they do everything except vote in a national, presidential, and senatorial election. They do everything. So I just want to make sure that the audience understand. And then a corporation do that too, because years ago, when I was told that, well, do you certify green card holders? I said, we do. And they said, why do you do that? The corporation do not take that. I said, why would they not? If they would want to have a minority company to go and clean their offices in their Denny's, for example, okay, in the McDonald's, why would they need a citizen to do that work? And so I went to the one of the board member of the Women Business National Council, WeBank, and I said, do you certify minority green card holders? And she said, well, I don't know. Let me go and check. Yeah. And then they found they did not, but they changed it. They changed it to also certify green card holders, because we just only certify citizens. For federal contract, that's fine. That's fine, because sometimes you do not know whether you're going into a secure building. You want to have some certain sense of security. Anyway, I just want to add a little bit of information for the viewer who maybe green card holders and waiting to become a citizen, okay? Waiting to become a citizen, or you are here for the 4th year, you have 1 more year, and then you can start your citizenship application process. That may take you, depending on which office you are applying through, maybe take you 2 or 3 years. So you may not become a citizen, and therefore you may not be able to get into federal contracting. Right. You still sometimes can become a subcontractor. Well, I have one more question, if I could. Does DHF have collaborative programs for the startup companies with new ideas, inventions, or concepts of service or product? And if they do, how do they work with you?
Yeah, so we're always trying to get non-traditional companies to do business with DHS, because, you find that small businesses like those have kind of the best ideas, like the Jeff Bezos of the world and whoever else starts in the garage or something like that, all large businesses were small businesses at one time, right? And so we do have several programs. One we have in particular is called the SBIR program, Small Business Innovation Research Program. And DOD also has several agencies, NASA, DOD has this program. And what it is it's what happens is an agency will send out something called a broad agency announcement. And so, they're looking for ideas. So it's kind of like an RFP that goes out to industry about, DHS has an idea about, we want to make a cup float. Have you ever made a cup float in space or, something? And companies will come back and say, indeed, I have. Indeed, I do have that idea. And, I've been working on it for 10 years, but, I can't get anyone to help me. And so, they submit these proposals, these white papers, and, they're evaluated, and, DHS will, provide seed money that kind of takes that procurement all the way to, I think it's level 3, where it becomes a commercially available product. So our SBIR program, now there's some, there we go, SBIR.gov. And if you look, DHS, I think, may spend around $18 million in our SBIR program every year. DOD, of course, is just a lot bigger than that. But this is a program, and it's another one called STTR. DHS does not have an STTR program. I forget what the acronym, but it's around the same. I forget what the T stands for. But we have this kind of program. We do not have STTR. DOD has both. But these are really the programs where people have ideas. How do you get these ideas out? They're all small businesses, and this helps those companies create these prototypes or create these items that are then, move forward to, one day actually being commercially available.
Great. Some of them, I think I know that in NASA, for example, they have a program, right? They took and then there's one of them which the eyeglasses that the astronaut wore in space that was created by a small business. It came out of the SBIR program. So small business, minority-owned business, and you great, brilliant mind, great team there. Try this SBTR that Darlene talked about. Great. Well, all right. To conclude, this is a final closing question. What is DHS's vision in the current economic climate and the future outlook?
Well, our vision is to kind of keep building on what we've been doing. So, sometimes it's a happy time and a curse because, when you have 38% small business achievement, how do you go backwards from that? I mean, how do you go back down to, but it all depends on what we're buying. And, if Coast Guard's buying 3 cutters that are $1 billion, I mean, that kind of may take our achievement down. But building on what we have done this fiscal year, more training so everyone understands the why. It's just not goals. We like to meet goals. We don't want to not meet goals. It's just people in general. But people have to understand the why. Why do I do what I do? Why does Susan do what she does? So sometimes when they have that, foundation of the why, they get, it's like a light bulb goes on. Oh, this is why we do that. Small businesses aren't just the mom and pop shops or go to the store and get something to eat. Crucial part of the economy. We all seen what has happened. But small business who provide support every day to the federal government also support these individuals behind the scenes in contracts for all kind of services, from, immigration services to citizenship services to, the individuals, the small business that's operating the food support at one of the Coast Guard bases. I mean, it's what small business can do is just almost everything. And so we want to make sure people understand that. And so we want to make sure that also you all, again, your duty is to help us do that by helping, make the program offices see, no, we're here, making the, small business specialists, we're here, we're present, we can do this. So those are some of the things. And then the underserved communities, the equity in procurement is one of the things I'm the the lead person, one of the lead people for the department for equity and procurement. They also have equity and hiring. That's not my bailiwick, but the equity and procurement and ensuring that we are, reaching out to all these underserved communities and groups. And what you'll probably see, Susan, is you'll be one of my, I'm going to tap into you for, one of the groups. We're going to do something later this year. We have about 5 or 6 sessions planned. And so we're going to tap into different associations that represent minority groups,
right?
Ones that represent, groups of disabilities, and do one of these "How do you do business with DHS" sessions. We do a lot of coming to speak. We're going to host our own and open it up to those communities to come in and, hopefully ask questions. I really like question time. I like to talk, but I like to hear what people, what questions. Sometimes you have to myth bust. Some of the stuff isn't really that accurate, and you want to make sure they get the right information. And so that's one of the things that I like to do. So I just appreciate you having me and our partnership with you and US PAC. And I can't wait to come back out to some of your events. And when things get a little regular, you have nice events. So, and I like to talk to people and really.
Thank you.
Reach out to them. But thanks for having us, Susan. And anytime you want us to support, we will do that.
Well, thank you so much for your partnership and for your, your prompt response. So anytime we call you, if you're traveling and someone in your office always reply back. And thank you for teaching our viewers and our audience how federal contracting works with regard to DHS. But from what you've explained, the definition and the workings of DHS following the FAR, Federal Acquisition Regulations. And if the audience have paid attention from the beginning to now for the last an hour and 15 minutes, they would understand how government works. And this will help them to have a much more smoother sailing on their journey to federal contracts. We appreciate your partnership, Darlene, and when working with us to serve the minority business community. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, and ladies and gentlemen, remember the president's executive order that instructed federal agencies to increase their purchases from minority businesses from 5 to 15% in the next 15 years. And not a whole lot of them are like DHS, and I think the commercial sector is going to follow the president's direction and do the same thing, making sure that their the wish or the statement that they will support the minority communities are just as robust as the federal government and just as genuine and real, fair and equitable as the federal government, such as what you've heard here at DHS. And the agency are taking this directive very seriously.
Very seriously.
And before we close, to be eligible for these opportunities, follow the money. You need to get certified as a minority-owned business, and US PAC is here for you. So contact us if you want to be certified as a minority-owned business. You want to know more about these programs, both in the federal and commercial sector. Okay. Stay tuned in for US PAC's upcoming events, and there are plenty, all to help you develop your business. Register for Synergy Forward, our 2021 conference part 2 on November 8 to 10. Don't forget. Bye for now, and see you in one of our meetings, and of course, during November 8 to 10, our Synergy Forward Conference Part 2. Bye-bye. Thank you again, Darlene.
Thank you.